everyone. Welcome to another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. Of course, I'm your guest, Steve Rozenberg. And what we talk about on this show is a multiple different angles at how life is dealt with, how you deal with it, how I deal with it. We talk about real business, real life, real situations. And I always try to make sure that whenever we bring guests on this show, we bring in just the best of the best and really understand how they contribute to business, to society, and to everything else that evolves in this crazy world of business and life. So I have an amazingly, very just excited about this guest today, Janine Driver, who's on. And I couldn't even give her justice by trying to explain who she is and what she does. So first of all, Janine, thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
I'm honored, Stephen. I'm excited to be here. I'm fascinated about your background, and I love that you're inspiring people to look at their world in a different way. That's really inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you said, we talked earlier, our paths are very similar, and I'll tell you what my mental shift was. And it's probably very similar to yours that caused me to turn my, hey, it'd be a good idea into a, I have to do this now type situation. But before we do that, just could you tell everyone your background and your credentials and everything that you've done up to this point in your life?
Yes, I worked for the Bureau. So in college, I know I'm the best version of me when I'm serving others. And so I worked at the Career Development Center, and there was a guy there named Ron who hated our boss, Sharon, and hated her. And I was just an intern. And he would give me, this is, I'm dating myself, I'm 51. He would pull ads for jobs out of newspapers. And he'd give them to me, and I would type on a typewriter, cover letters for him and apply for jobs. My boss, Sharon, found out it was an unpaid internship, and she goes, "Do you stay late at night and type up applications for Ron?" This was brought to my attention. I said, "Yes, I do." She goes, "That's not part of your responsibility." I go, "I know, I do it. He needs some help." Well, lo and behold, that little act of kindness that I didn't get rewarded for in the moment led to when ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Fran Flaherty out of Connecticut, needed to hire a woman because the last several hires were all men. And the only woman, Regina Domingo, said, "If you hire one more man, I'm filing a grievance." And he called this Fran Flaherty his college roommate. Who is his college roommate? My guy, Ron, who I'm helping look for jobs up in the Berkshires, 5 hours away. He calls his roommate, right? And they goes, "Hey, dude, you got anyone, any women?" And he goes, "I've got someone that goes above and beyond. Her name's Janine Driver." And I was one of many people interviewed, certainly not the smartest person interviewed, but I got the job because of just serving people, expecting nothing. I had no idea I would leave. I never even heard of ATF. When I first got the job, I told everyone I'm working for the FBI. No, the FBI and the ATF are two different agencies. So ATF.
That's where I'm going.
Right. I told everyone, I'm like, I'm working at the FBI. No, wrong, epic fail. Right. ATF at the time was part of Treasury. And ATF, if you go back briefly, it's Elliot Ness. And so Elliot Ness was like the whole getting tax on alcohol and even stopping alcohol back in the day. And so little do I know, it's with the Treasury Department. I get the job ATF at 21. And to make a long story short, I'm there almost 17 years. And I kept getting these notes, JJ Newberry moments. And so I decided, who's this dude, JJ Newberry? And I tracked him down, just like you do with your podcast here, Stephen. You want to find and be trained by the best. And so I tracked down JJ Newberry. If he's being quoted in the law enforcement training guides, and he became my mentor and friend. Right now he has dementia, which is really sad for me, because to have this man with all this knowledge, to have this memory. And when I talk to him, he calls my son Angus, my firstborn son. I have 3 sons. I'm wearing a hat that says Mom of Boys. I have 3 sons. And he calls Angus Little Bull. And when I call JJ, he'll still say, "How's Little Bull?" Well, Little Bull's 6'2" now, and he's 16. And I have a great conversation with JJ, and I hang up and I say to his significant other, "How's he doing? He remembered everything." She goes, "Janine, in 2 minutes, he's going to forget he talked to you." So it's really disheartening, the power of how something can change under our noses, which I know happened for you in your career and did with me. So I get on board with ATF. I find my niche was firearms trafficking and illegal manufacturing of explosives and selling of explosives. I was the only female on an explosives team for the Mid-Atlantic district here. And I live in Alexandria now, Virginia, but I'm from Boston originally. I was the only woman, but I like being one of the guys in the back room. I was a tomboy as a kid, and I just have very, masculine energy in that regard, very tomboyish. And I love guys. A lot of my best friends are men. I'm working on having female friends. I like like they get over it quickly, men, right? If you get in a fight, there's not a lot of drama. You scream and yell, and then 10 seconds later, you're grabbing a beer.
Yeah.
So of course, I would ask for a mentor, JJ Newberry. And JJ took me under his wing, and his rule was this, Stephen: everything I give to you, Janine, make it yours, and then share it to others and allow them to make it theirs. And I think it's so beautiful when people just like you, Stephen, get information and don't just keep it for yourself, but literally say, here, take this, do what you want with it, and keep spreading it. And that's what I love about your podcast. And that's what I love about JJ. And I just was fascinated. I'm now a profiler in how people make decisions, not a criminal profiler, but I can tell based on movement, how you make decisions. If you're impulsive, if you are a trend spotter, if you're the type of person that likes to research at the expense of missing an opportunity, maybe that analysis paralysis, or are you super stubborn? I'm a stubborn person. So stubborn people tend to be bouncers. And what I mean by that, if you're listening, not watching the video, is that I call it oomph. When I tell a story, I tend to bounce. So it'll look like this, Stephen. Guess what? My ex-husband, when I went to the house yesterday, the house had no food in it and moldy food in the fridge. And most people say, Janine, I'm not your ex-husband. Don't take it out on me. And I'm like, I'm not taking it out on you. I'm telling you a story. Right. So this bouncing, if people have seen my TED Talks, I know you want to ask me about a couple of them. People see my TED Talks, they'll say, she's so angry, that one. She's very angry. Listen, if you have people like me that seem angry all the time, and I am a recovering anger person, angerholic, but if you have people that bounce a lot, they're very intense, I'm telling you, their big strengths are they persist against difficult odds. When the going gets tough, they get tougher. But their weaknesses are they're stubborn and can be aggressive and a little intense. But they're the people that when you need help, show up and stay there. They don't leave because it's midnight. If you need help till 3 a.m., us stubborn people will be there till 3 a.m. We'll be the last man standing. And so after ATF, I learned all about traditional body language. I was so inspired, and I took this program at Columbia College and became this profiler on how movement connects to how we make decisions. So my expertise is from law enforcement, traditional body language, and then this whole other world of reading how people make decisions, how you're motivated to spend your time and energy and act, and how to interact with people. My next TED Talk will be, we think there's extroverts and introverts for our interaction styles, but there's actually two more. And out of those two other categories, 85% of the people in your life are in one of them. And it's very rarely talked about. And 10% of your people in your life are in the other one. And that 10%, it's so interesting. A woman on my team is in that 10%. She's my hardest worker. She's the type of person most people, she would never get through a job interview, let alone be a top performer in a company. Why? In interviews, we read those people wrong. So hopefully we'll get a couple seconds to chat about that, how to spot that, what to do to be better leaders, better salespeople, simply by understanding human beings. I have a picture behind me, if you're seeing the video, of a couple brains with puzzle pieces, and this understanding this right brain, left brain connection, understanding that we've known for years, Stephen, and you at home listening, that the brain influences the body. We now have scientific proof the body is also influencing the brain. As a matter of fact, before you cry or before you get angry or before you have fear, first, there's an event that happens. After the event, you make a facial expression. That event plus the facial expression then triggers the emotion, the fear, the sadness, the surprise, the contempt, the anger. Event, facial expression, then emotion. Emotion doesn't come first. So understanding the power of body language makes you more money as a salesperson, helps decrease drama in the workplace, helps increase your ability to hire the Bethanies of the world that most people are overlooking, like the Bethany on my team with that unique interaction style. So understanding how much the body is influencing the brain is a game changer. And that's my background.
Gosh, I have so many different directions I want to take this conversation right now, but first of all, let me ask you this. Obviously, this skill has evolved right over time. You didn't wake up as a little girl saying, this is what I want to do. how does somebody get into this realm and keep going down this path? And the second question is do you do it because, or did you do it because you were fighting crime or because you were helping people? Like, how did you look at that and have that objective every time you had to start with a clean slate to not bring in past, experiences of bad people? So I'm just curious, how do you go down that path as you're educating yourself, not to skew your thoughts?
So you made my brain just went in a certain place, and I touched my eye while we were talking. And when you learn what we're going to talk about here today, you can't unsee it, unhear it, or unexperience it. And so even me touching my eye when you asked that, and I experience a little emotion here. My eyes are watering because this answer can go in numerous places. What you're asking me, which is, what led me into this? How do I, put one person I'm interviewing or a criminal behind and give the next person the benefit of the doubt? The reason I touched my eye now, adjusted my baseball hat that I'm wearing, is when I was a 6-year-old kid, Stephen, I was molested by a neighbor up the street. And it was just for a couple of minutes. My mom called me for dinner. I struggle with weight. If you've seen my TED Talks, you see all the time, or any of my online stuff on YouTube, I go on TV shows and stuff. I go up and down in weight, and people will often mention this about me because it hurts my brand. They'll say, I'm like, well, maybe my brand is I'm the one that goes up and down in weight. It's okay. Part of that is my mom called me for dinner and the abuse stopped. So there's this like stinking thinking, there's this kind of loop that's in my brain. And I'm just recently discovering this, working with some therapists, is that in my head, somehow there's this belief that at the other end of food, because when mom called, Janine, dinner, I was 2 houses down. The guy had me in his shed. I won't go into details. I was 6 years old. Think of a 6-year-old that and he was 38.
Wow.
And somehow in my head, I created this belief that at the other end of food, help comes, the suffering stops. And so when I'm struggling, I just went through a divorce during COVID. I'd gotten in shape a couple of years ago, went through a divorce during COVID. I have 3 sons. My financial world, as a speaker who travels over 100 times a year on planes, that stopped in a 3-day window with COVID, similar to what happened with you at 9/11. Hopefully we get to chat about that a bit. Mm-hmm. It changed my life. Now, my mother believed me when I told her that night when she was giving me a bath. I was so young, she was still giving me baths, and called the police and all that stuff. This is the interesting part that led to where I am in doing this work. 10 years later, a man tries to kidnap me. It's 1986. This is about the time where little Adam Walsh went missing. They later found 2 different parts of his body, they found his head first. It's devastating. Right. So little Adam Walsh's father, John Walsh, who's still on TV helping crimes and helping people, he was on TV all the time. And I remember as a 16-year-old kid watching his suffering. And I worked at a Mr. Donuts, and I went to go pick up my check one morning at 5 a.m. My mom and dad were still sleeping, and my 2 younger sisters. We were going camping that day. My mother, I said, can we go get my check at Mr. Donuts before we go camping? My mother goes, listen, we're going camping for 2 weeks, Janine. You're not going to be able to deposit your check. The Mr. Donuts is 2.8 miles this way. We're a half mile from the highway. No, we're not going 6 miles back, round trip. No. Well, what I didn't want to tell my mom, Stephen, is that the guy who owned Mr. Donuts was a cokehead and was doing cocaine in the back of the room. And in my little 16-year-old brain, I was thinking, the police are going to come arrest this guy, and I'm not going to have my money.
Yeah, I'm not going to get my check. I
just wanted my check in hand. So I've got that that determination, even as a young kid, Stephen. And I hop on my bike, set an alarm for 5 a.m., drive down, get the check. I'm so proud of me. Pouring rain, pitch black outside. As I'm riding back around 5:15, a guy tries to kidnap me, pulls up, says, hey, let's throw your bike in the trunk of the car. I'm soaking wet. It's raining, and I'll give you a ride home. I call these moments blue streak moments. Similar, I have a blue streak moment with 9/11 too, if we get to it, sure. How it changed my life. But because I had been molested at 6, years later, at 16, 10 years later, I'm like, is this a pattern? Why does this stuff not happen to my sisters? And it's happening to me. And so I was saved by the skin of my teeth. Story for another time, how I got away from him, because there's no way. I had another 1.5 miles or so to drive home. And I think bike versus car, he's just going to hit me with the car. Who cares if I'm broken? He's going to throw me in the trunk of the car. But because of little Adam Walsh, and his story and his dad going on the air all the time. And because of what happened when I was younger, those two things saved my life. Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And so seeing John Walsh and that suffering, going back to what happened when I was 6 and being cautious of trusting people's intention, then was able to create a strategy in my determination, create a strategy to save my life. So why do I tell you these things? In college, I was a communications major, and in one of the classes, they talked about when someone is abused as a kid or raped or molested or any type of abuse, you are twice as likely to have that abuse happen again as you get older. So women who are raped once are often, if you were to talk to them, are often raped a second time or even a third time. Kids who are abused once are often abused numerous times. Women who get in battered relationships often end up in battered relationships again. And when I learned this, I wanted to break that pattern for me. So I went into law enforcement selfishly to protect me. I knew I wanted kids one day. I wasn't sure about the husband, but I got one of those. Thank you, Match.com. And we're a great ex-husband and ex-wife now. He's my best friend. But I wanted to protect me, Stephen. And so that's what pushed me there. And because of all of that, when I did work a case with ATF, and I still have law enforcement today, this coming Tuesday, I'm going to the Massachusetts. I'm training the state police, the sheriff's office, and local police that are connected with battered women abuse and sex trafficking. And so I'm talking to, I think, 350 people. Massachusetts is doing a law enforcement reform, and they're going to be using my training moving forward. And what I do is I have to first say my bias. So I'm a mother of 3 sons. When I weighed in on the Judge Kavanaugh case, I had to say first, I was a victim of abuse. When I was a kid, I was molested. So, okay, I have this bias towards towards Dr. Ford, saying Kavanaugh did this and she couldn't remember some of the details. Well, I can't remember some of the details. I don't know what I was wearing that day, but I know where the chair was in the shed where he had me undress and sit on his lap. Right? I can give you some details. I know what side of the sidewalk I walked on, but I can't tell you what kind of dinner. So I had a bias towards Dr. Ford. But as a mother of 3 boys, I have a bias towards being cautious before you just automatically assume the guy is wrong, because I know women lie all the time. I worry about my 3 sons helping someone, a woman, and then them turning around and saying, he did something to me, he violated me. So the first step for me in any situation is to say, do I have a bias regarding this topic? You're very muscular and fit. If I had a boyfriend, an ex-boyfriend, which I wish I did, that was smoking hot like you with all those pipes and muscles, the gun show coming in every day, and he cheated on me, I might have a bias to men like you who are physically fit and have the gun show coming in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have to first stop and say, because we read people in less than 7 seconds. And how you're reading them is from past experience. And sometimes we won't give people a fair shake if you don't stop first and say, do I have a bias? So that's my first step. And it goes back to, as Steve Jobs said, connecting all those dots, all those things, a blue streak moment, I call them. It's when a bolt of lightning hits, you have to get out of the pool or stop playing tennis or stop golfing. It's a blue streak in the sky. These blue streak moments in our life are what happened to you after 9/11. After 9/11, you're a pilot, you love your job, you think you have this amazing financial future, and come 9/12, you're out of work when you get furloughed. And they're like, yeah, and you're being furloughed with thousands of other people. Good luck. So that's a blue streak moment that leads you to where you are. And so my life is full of blue streaks.
Do you think everyone's life is full of blue streaks, but they just don't see the signs, or they choose not to acknowledge those signs that are hitting them?
Yes. And this is why I do what I do now. When I learned these skills at ATF, how to first protect me and eventually my 3 sons that I have, but I had years later after I learned it, I said, I need to give this to the everyday person, to the entrepreneur, to the real estate agent, to the mortgage broker, to the single mom, to judges, because no one's teaching it. We read people wrong. We think, the number one move, if you are about to buy a car, or anything, and you want to negotiate, the number one move to get you a better deal is to cross your arms when they say the price. When someone tells you the price on something, you cross your arms, the first thing they think is, she doesn't like the price. And people begin to negotiate either their deliverables, the price They'll throw in some stuff, right? Okay, if you give me this home, I won't do a home inspection, whatever it is. They'll begin to throw things in. But if you knew what that really was, we read people wrong. Crossed arms, do you know what it is? Do you know what it means?
It basically means you're closing off and you're not open to them anymore, right?
Okay, no. So this is what people think. So that's a myth. So
Okay.
it could be that, but that's one of thousands of examples. So crossed arms means you're using both sides of your brain, Stephen, and you at home listening or watching. Your right brain, which is intuitive and takes risks, controls the left side of your body. Your left brain that likes facts and figures and wants to think about it controls the right side of your body. So when someone crosses their arms, all they're using is both sides of their brain. So they're literally thinking. So think in law enforcement. If I go to the scene of the crime and there's a dead body here and a gun here and a pack of cigarettes here and some blood over here, you'll often see, even in the movies like Law and Order or Criminal Minds, the special agent or the police officer or the detective arrives and crosses their arms. Are they bored, disinterested, defensive? How come suddenly the meaning changes? No, because bored, disinterested, defensive is just one possible solution. That detective is doing is solving the crime. They're using both sides of their brain. They're saying, what happened here? Research shows, Stephen, that you're 30% more likely to solve a difficult task or problem with crossed arms. So if you think about what happened when after a 9/12, when you lost your career as a pilot,
right,
your dream career, I bet you before you figured out I'm going to buy every single book I can possibly find on real estate, and before you bought your first, home that you were going to flip or your first apartment building and multi-unit home, I bet you sat down and crossed your arms and said to yourself, where do I go from here? Crossed arms, 30% more likely to solve a difficult problem. Now let's go back to my beginning of the interview with you. I said I have a lot of oomph. If you don't have a lot of oomph and you're not determined and persist against difficult odds, this is a great move for you to do. Increase that pressure. Your mother-in-law calls, or you have a client that's calling, a customer, a homeowner, or home seller, and they're calling you and they keep getting more and more of your time in your pushover. You don't have what I have or Steve has to stand our ground. You could literally cross your arms. It's an increase in pressure while talking to them on speakerphone. You're more likely to stand your ground or physically stand your ground. When you stand up and have phone calls, you will not be pushed around as easily as if you were sitting down. So our body is influencing our brain.
Now, let me ask you this. The things that I have learned is that when you're communicating, body language is, let's say 55 to 59% and tonality is 30, 33% and words are 7%. Is that true? Or is that another myth?
That's another myth.
Really? Interesting.
Now, I'm the first person, there's a documentary on the Discovery Channel that comes out like every year. They have a week of playing this nonstop. And the first dope that's speaking is me saying 7% of what we communicate is words, 93% is body language. Right. That I've written 2 books. And when I wrote my first book, it's called You Say More Than You Think. I, by the way, you can get it from your library. You don't have to buy it. I got all my money from Random House up front. But when I wrote that book, I called the author of that study, Albert Moravian, and he sent me information. That study was a very limited study that was based on just high emotions. You watched very graphic videos and you had to pretend that you liked it. And so it is the most misquoted study, even more so than something like crossed arms. So, and I'll prove it to you right now. You have kids, because I know you have a son that broke his collarbone and he's in surgery right now. I'm a prayer person, swearing Christian.
Let me in for everyone watching. They wouldn't let me in the building, so that's why I'm here. And so just
your wife is there.
Yes.
Your wife is there. So how many do you have? Just have one son or one kid?
Just one.
Okay. Now, if you had multiple kids, one of the questions I ask and how I make my money today as a keynote speaker and talk to sales. I just came back for 2 real estate events, actually. I'm negotiating another one. Is I'll say to someone who has multiple kids, I'll say, tell me about, list your name of your kids. And then people will say their name of their kids. And when they say their name of their kids, I'll say, why do you, which one's your favorite? Or they'll tell me something. And so when they tell me something, I can decode a couple things here. One is whoever they list first, I'll joke and I say, that's the favorite, right? But we list things in an order, oldest to youngest. Mm-hmm. So my sons are Angus, Charlie, and Jack. But if you go, Janine, name your kids. And I say, Jack and Angus. And then you say, oh, is Charlie your oldest? I go, no, actually, Angus is my oldest. Anytime there's a switch in the name, in the level of the kids, it's telling you something. And you would then ask me, as a good real estate agent, what's going on with Charlie, whoever I name first? What's going on for Charlie? Is everything okay with Charlie? And people will look at you. How did you know? How did you know? Well, Charlie just finished kindergarten, or Charlie, I think, might have COVID, or Charlie's top of mind. So anytime the order mixes up, it indicates something about us, right?
It's kind of like when you're buying a car, what are your preferences? I want a white, V8 with leather interior. So the white is more important than the V8, and then the leather.
Yes.
Is it the same hierarchy, correct?
Oh yeah, 100%. Words matter. So O.J. Simpson was asked when Nicole was found dead, what was your relationship with Nicole? And he said, we were a typical married couple. We had our downs and ups. Instead of our ups and downs. So I'll say to people, all right, so tell me about your kids. The words matter. And I go, okay, imagine your son writes to you. So what's your son's name, Stephen?
Jet.
Jet writes you, dear dad, you being in this real estate business and doing these podcasts and this ruined my life. I hated this about you. You ruined my life. I hate you because of this. Love, Jet. Are you going to pick that up and say, it does only 7% matters to me? Because 93% of what we communicate is body language. No, words have a big impact. So I say at the Body Language Institute, 50% of words matter and 50% of the nonverbals matter. As a matter of fact, to detect deception, words are way more important than body language. And think about it, words are on text messages and phones. Right. Gary Vee has this awesome talk where he says, how many of you get irritated by people actually calling you these days? Like just picking up the phone and calling.
And then you're like, oh, did you call me? And then you text message them.
90% of the people stood up because with cell phones today, you're interrupting me on my time instead of texting me, and I'll call you on when I'm available, right? You're calling me when you're available. I'll let you know. So words matter. I'll give you a quick example here that I think people will enjoy on the home front, and you can use this business and professionally. If I said to you, Stephen, I just left my office 10 minutes ago, Stephen. I'm going to get to the restaurant 15 minutes early. Take your time. I have some work I can do on my cell phone. What's my hidden message in that statement?
To take your time.
Now, some people will say, it's legit, take your time. Other people will say, Janine, you're being passive aggressive, saying, I'm going to be there early, you be there early, being passive aggressive. And some people will say, Janine, you're just leaving your house now, or you're just blow drying your hair and you're actually going to be late, but you're trying to cover your butt when you arrive late. It's so weird because I left 20 minutes early, but it could be those things. But here's the secret message. If you understand the power of words, I just left. Just is a minimizing word. Pay attention to just. And left means strife. I left my job. I left the industry. I left my husband. When I tell you I just left, anytime someone's saying left and they're talking about I just left, they're telling you there was some strife on the home front or strife in my day. So this would be a great opportunity for you as a realtor to say, hey, is this still a good day for you, Janine? Would you like to reschedule, Janine? You're meeting with a mortgage banker friend of yours. Hey, is this still a good day? Is this still a good time? Do you want to push back? And give that person an opportunity to bow out. Or when they get there, you would say, is everything okay on the home front? How was your morning? Is everything okay? You're meeting people where they're at because they've given you this secret code. And that's one of over 5,000 words that have secret messages. The word actually means comparing two things. Did you buy the blue car or the red truck? Actually, I bought the blue car. That makes sense. We know what they're comparing. When I say to you, I actually had fun on your interview podcast today, Stephen Rozenberg. Your brain becomes a mind reader. It's not your fault. Our brain's programmed this way. This is why you have guests on to help us get out of that mind reading that happens so quickly. And when I say, I actually had fun on your podcast, it doesn't mean I didn't think I was going to have fun. And what your brain will think when I say I actually had fun, I actually enjoyed being here, your brain will naturally think, oh, she didn't think she was going to enjoy it.
All right. Was there an option not to have fun?
Yeah. So you, instead of asking me a question, which is a very easy question, as opposed to what, Janine? As opposed to what? Well, as opposed to the podcast I did yesterday, because the person did no research on me, didn't stroke my ego like you did before the interview, saying you watched my TED Talk, And so you don't know when someone uses the word actually what they're comparing it to, unless they flat out tell you. As opposed to yesterday, I actually had fun on your podcast. If they don't tell you and they use the word actually, it's up to you to do due diligence and just say, as opposed to what?
So let me ask this, just going back to before we move on, that sentence that you said, what caught me, and of course I'm not an expert as you are, but when you paused when you said it and you paused right before you said, take your time, to me, that was the emphasis just listening to you talk when you said, take your time. So I, in my mind, thought, oh, she wants me to take my time and be careful to make sure I got there. My question is if I read that in a text message, there's no tonality. So it seems like that's when things can be misconstrued without the pauses and the tones and the upswings and downswings. How important is the tonality then?
Okay. So first of all, if you read it in a text message, the word left would still be on there.
True.
And so that left equals strife. All right. So the word left would be there. What you're talking about with pausing. And so this is very interesting. I'm glad you picked up on this. You can tell that you are smart in the world of communication, because there's multiple things happening in my message. Me pausing and then saying, take your time, is an embedded command to your subconscious. I'm assigning you a trait that I want you to have, maybe. And so you're looking at, there's something called the hierarchy of criteria. If I'm looking at the statement and I hear it with the tone and pitch, it's going to shift how I might perceive it. Okay. So to answer your question about tone and pitch, tone and pitch is so important. Yale University just did a study during COVID that they found out, other than being face-to-face and us talking and getting the overall vibe, the second best way to communicate, to want to know how someone feels, is over the phone, not on a text and not on something like Zoom. When we are on Zoom, you're looking at me, I'm looking at you. We have so much visual clutter coming at us that we actually miss a little bit of the impact of the tone of voice. So other than being face-to-face in person, the second best way to understand how someone is feeling is simply a phone call. Texting people, fewer of these Zoom meetings, not just because we're doing a million of them and they're starting to get irritating, but literally you will miss so much data by seeing me, looking at my hat, my sweatshirt, my gestures, instead of hearing my tone and pitch. I've been emotional a couple of times here throughout the program. I guarantee you the people who are listening to this podcast picked up on my emotion before I even dimed myself out and said, ooh, look at that, she's getting emotional. Something interesting is about to happen. Where the people who watched me are getting so, visually, cluttered. So I want to show you an example of this. Have you ever been in an airport where you have to look at your plane ticket and remember 100 times what gate you're going to? Yeah. A22, you go through security. Wait, what gate am I going to? I know it's A, but A what? Oh yeah, A22. And then you go get yourself, a protein drink. What's the gate again? You have to look so many times. Do you know why? Why? Because of all the visual clutter that's surrounding you, people walking and this, that you're actually not looking at the number. You're not paying attention. It's not that you have a lapse in memory. It's that you never paid attention in the first place because you were distracted by all this visual data. We need to start going back to having phone calls if you want to have better business, fewer of these Zoom meetings. If you just looked at your A22 briefly and you look at it truly and Zoom everything else, even turn away from everybody, like be at near a wall and look at it, A22. Well, 22 is my basketball number when I played basketball in high school. Imagine having 22 apples. I love Honeycrisp apples. 22 Honeycrisp apples. Now I'll remember A22. It takes seconds. We're wasting time by getting all this visual data in our way.
Well, what's so funny is, well, first of all, when you were saying that, I was thinking in my mind, is it because one of your senses are, your visual's not there, so you're paying more attention because your eyes are not busy looking at everything else, and yes, you're limiting one, so another one is actually, yes, I don't know if it's getting strengthened, but it's, yes, more alert.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And that's what Yale found out over the last 2 years. They found out exactly that our sense of hearing goes up, our sense of hearing. Now, you had asked me about tone and pitch. I have a whiny, squeaky voice. And if I'm talking very fast, which I've done on many TV interviews, it's torture to hear them back. The faster you talk, the higher your voice will go up, your tone and pitch. Right. If you have a high tone of pitch, you are seen as less authoritative, as someone who's a pushover, as someone who isn't educated, as someone that shouldn't be taken seriously. If you have a lower tone and pitch, which I hopefully do today, because I'm working on pausing, and I'm going to tell you why my tone is lower today than if you had interviewed me in the afternoon. If you have a lower tone and pitch, you're seen as powerful, authoritative. You are someone who's credible. In Harvard Business Review did this article a couple of years ago. Credibility equals I should respect you. So when you have a lower tone of voice, what you're doing is you're building respect because you're coming across as credible. And respect ultimately will lead to trust, that with warmth and likability.
And that isn't that why news anchors have those booming voices, news at 11.
Yes, take me seriously.
Yeah.
Respect me. Well, I want you to, so I'm going to show you how I would normally talk. If you were interviewing me at 5 o'clock today, it would probably sound like this. Stephen, I'm so excited you're here. Oh my gosh, I watched your whole on your website, which is awesome. I watched that after 9/11, you lost your whole entire career. I can't even believe it. There's something very similar happened to me when COVID happened. Feel how irritated. I'm from Boston, so those irritating words, my tone pitch is up high.
Things upswinging on the back end.
It's too much energy. People are not going to listen to the podcast, and you can see the difference in different interviews with me, and it's something I've been working on. So here's how you know your real low voice. In the morning when you first wake up is when your voice is the lowest part of the day. So here you're interviewing me. Well, we started at 9:30, it's now 10. You're interviewing me in the morning. Everybody, when you wake up in the morning, pay attention. You wake up and say, hey, everybody, anyone want coffee? You're like, hey, anybody want some coffee? I just put on the coffee. Anyone want coffee? It's not faking that you have a low voice. It's tapping into your actual low voice. Elizabeth Holmes, that's the scam artist from Theranos, who created this blood test that supposedly tested multiple diseases, was all a scam. She scammed millionaires and billionaires. Recently found guilty, but her voice was really deep like this, and it came across as really fake. And when you come across as fake, you come across as inauthentic. And so a couple things that you can do: yawn before you're going. If it's in the afternoon, yawn. When you actually yawn, it will tap back into your lower voice. Instead of talking from your throat, talk from your gut. And also you can do something, and it sounds silly, but chanting, just something like this. You want to feel that lower register of your voice. Right. Now, when is a high pitch valuable? If there's a fight. So you and my buddy, Tony Capullo, right? Yeah. Smoking hot muscle heads here, kindest, big teddy bears, right? Yeah. You guys are in a fist fight at a bar, God forbid. I don't think that would happen. But if you were, do I want to come in and be like, Stephen, Tony, both of you, come on, knock it off? No. A high-pitched voice is great when dealing with conflict. So guys, Stephen, Tony, come on, guys. Let's just get along. Let's just get a beer. Come on, guys. We're friends. So a higher pitched voice is effective at the right time. And same thing with body language. There is no good and bad body language. There's body language where I'm closed and defensive, where I want to not be disturbed, because literally I don't want to be disturbed. You're steepling right now. You do this all the time. I took a picture of you on my cell phone. Even in your interview, you're talking about your bio on your page there, on your webpage. Yeah. You were steepling. When we steeple people, we intimidate people. So here, if you're listening at home, you won't be able to see. But I have to shut this background off for a quick second here. But when we steeple people, we can intimidate people. So steepling is a sign of power.
Is it a bad thing, or is it a...
No, hold on. Was that half my screen was closed?
Here you go.
So here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
So here you are.
Okay.
So steepling, for the people listening, are these, Mr. Burns used to do this, right? And it's prayer hands. Oprah Winfrey does this. Richard Branson does this. George Clooney does this. Trump does this. Is when our fingertips touch our fingertips, like the steeple of a church. Right. And when we steeple people, we can intimidate people. And it is power, authority, and confidence. What I love is you did not do it in the beginning of our interview. So steepling is great when you're saying, I know my business here, right? I know what I'm talking about. In the beginning, when building rapport, you should not steeple, because it can come across as you're overly pushy. Overly pushy. So, but right here at the beginning of an interview, in the middle of the interview, at the end, at your call to action, this is great to steeple. A great one too is if you open it up a little, like you're holding a basketball, an invisible basketball. Power, authority, and confidence with likability. Columbo would do this. Stephen, you smoke cigars?
Yeah.
Reason I ask is I see a pack of cigars right there, and there was a cigar at the scene of the crime. And then Columbo would throw you in jail, and you'd write him a postcard, "Dear Columbo, thanks for saving my life and treating me with respect."
So let me ask you that. Now I'm afraid to unsteeple them, but it's so funny. I just gotta tell you, when I told people that I was interviewing you and I was all excited, and some people were like, "Man, are you a little nervous that she's going to see right through you, or she's going to, you have this superpower?" And I'm like, I look at it as I'm getting to talk to someone that has this unique gift in life. Like in my mind, I'm thinking, this is such a great opportunity. I'm not afraid to talk to someone. I'm excited to talk to someone like this, because just like in this situation, how much will I learn that I would have never have known had we never met or talked? So how often do you talk to people, and once they find out what you do, is it this awkward shifting of moments and not talking to you? And, I heard your TED talk about the bus driver with the hat over his head and other things. How often does that happen after they find out your background?
Okay. It happens all the time. And I'm divorced now a couple of years, but no one wants to date me, right? So I'm like, I just have to put on my dating apps. I just have to say that I'm an educator. Like, I can't tell people what I do.
Sure.
First of all, I'm going to analyze you right there. I talked about this increase in pressure. And while you were just talking right there, you did at least 18 increases in pressure. So it indicates to me, I'd have to profile you for 2 hours to get your I call it your movement DNA. Your behavior, just like you have a fingerprint, you have a behavioral fingerprint. And so I would have to interview you for 2 hours to see more movements. There's 12 movements all human beings make around planet Earth. And I have to see how often you do all 12. But this right here, with all those increases in pressure, I have no doubt in my mind, you're a pretty determined person. Are you a stubborn person?
When it's something that I want, absolutely. I will do whatever I have to do to accomplish my goal.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons you're successful after 9/12, right?
Yeah.
That increase in pressure, you can't unsee it. I say I'm like Jim Carrey, where he became God. I think it was called Bruce Almighty. Yeah. And he's like telling God, you need to do a better job. And God's like, really? You be God, knock yourself out. And all these prayers are coming in, and then he puts them into sticky notes, and then he puts them into a computer database. All that data is coming at me. However, I have ADD. So if we're at lunch, at the end of lunch, if you look at me and say, "So when my wife told me about her and the girls going to Aruba, when she talked about that at lunch, when she said this, was that part true?" If you didn't prime me in advance, I'm not going to see it. You'd have to prime me. Right now I'm primed because I'm looking at you, and I've got my body language hat on. But for the most part, I'm not seeing it. On a date, I'm definitely seeing it, because I'm looking for, human beings lie. Adults lie 1 in 8 social situations, and college kids 1 in 3. So everybody lies.
Sure. Now,
so I'm looking for it.
Let me ask you this. Are you able to shut it off when you want to? Is it one of those like the Bruce Almighty where like, God damn it. Like, I just want to have a normal conversation with someone and not analyze them. Is it not possible?
My ADD can shut off part. There's some parts I can't unnotice. I can't unnotice if you do that increase in pressure. I also can't unnotice if when you're talking, you talk with intensity and your body language comes in my direction. If you said to me, "Janine, let me tell you something else." And guess what? If your body language is following your every move, like I call it, like you're like a smart bomb, you're talking to someone and they're like, "Whoa," she's like really intense, really into you. And her hand gestures are following where she's talking. And those people love research, because these are the people like a microscope, right? Or they have the magnifying glass, like, Sherlock Holmes is. These people, so if you were talking to me, a stranger, I remember I was on the set of a show. It was on MTV. It was called, oh my God, Jenna Jameson was there. I go, "Is it weird that the only famous person that I know in the show is Jenna Jameson? She's the porn star." I didn't know any of the other celebrities, like 16 and pregnant celebrities. I'm like, what does this say about my back? Like, where does this come from? But this woman sitting next to me, I guess she was some bigwig, and they told us not to talk to her. She was like executive producer of MTV or something. But she was next to me, to my left, talking to the person to her left. And she's doing these gestures. She's pointing, her whole body's coming like a smart bomb. Her energy's all in one direction. And she's like, "Yeah, we need to do this. We need to do that." And I tapped her on her shoulder. I'm a rule breaker. I didn't become successful by not breaking rules.
Right.
My house has my 4 family values. It says the happy tree house. And underneath, this is on our front porch, it says fun, kindness, respect, and safety. And if you have to ask my 3 sons, why does safety come last? They'll tell you, because if safety came first, there'd be no fun. So fun always comes first. You got to be a little bit of a rule breaker. But I looked at the woman, I go, by any chance, do you happen to love research? She goes, I love research. How did you know that? So this determining, this smart bomb research move, shoulder shrugs. Shoulder shrug means uncertainty. I can't unsee it. What do you want for lunch? BLT, a protein drink. Are you doing keto? What do you want? I don't know. It makes sense there, right? Because you're saying, I don't know, and you're shoulder shrugging. The shoulder shrug is the number one mistell in sales. Because when I say to you, if I'm a real estate agent, or let me be a mortgage broker for a second. If I'm a mortgage broker and I say to you, listen, for you to buy this house, Stephen, I want to stress, do not make any other large purchases because it's going to affect your credit and screw up you buying this house. This means do not buy any new cars. Don't buy any new large purchases, right? No cars, no, timeshare, whatever. And the person goes, okay, got it. And they shoulder shrug. You should be concerned.
They're full of it.
Well, they're saying yes, but then they're showing you uncertainty. That's a disconnect. Our brain has what's called an N400. I'll have a peanut butter and jelly on my socks. Your brain just heard that. You listening at home or watching this Zoom here, peanut butter and jelly on my socks. Your brain did a hiccup, like a heart monitor, beep, beep, and then big jump. This Spencer Kelly at Colgate University wanted to find out if our body language is not congruent with the words we're using at the same time. Does this N400 happen? And the answer is yes. This is why, even though you may not know a lot about body language, you can watch someone on TV and you can say, that person's a liar. You can say, Carol Baskin, I think she killed her husband. I can't tell you why, but I have a vibe. I have a feeling. Your brain is picking up on inconsistencies. It doesn't mean she's a killer. It doesn't mean the person's lying. You asked me a question. Ask me if I ever cheated on my ex-husband.
Did you ever cheat on your ex-husband?
No. As I say no, if you're listening at home, I shoulder shrugged. I didn't cheat, but maybe the reason there's that disconnect is he cheated on me. Or maybe my best friend right now is cheating on her husband. Or maybe this morning when I was at the school, I saw a guy leave with a woman holding hands that I know as a fact isn't his wife. So when you ask me if I cheated and I shrug, I say no, a definitive answer should not have uncertainty shrug. And I shrug, it just means you opened a file cabinet and took out a file that I'm uncomfortable talking about right now. Again, going back to that word, actually, you don't know what they're talking about. The shoulder shrug is telling you an actually. It's giving you an alternative that we don't know what it is. So in these moments, when you see someone shrug, just simply say, maybe I'm wrong here, Stephen. It feels to me, though, that there's just something you're not saying. And then stop talking. I call it wait. Why am I talking? Stop talking. It seems to me like there's I don't know, it feels like there's something you're not saying.
And it's that vacuum of, I when I was trained on this, obviously not to the extent you were, but that silence is what's very awkward for people, that they feel they've got to fill that vacuum. So they're going to start talking. Is that what that is?
100%. And whoever talks next loses. And I was brought in, someone saw me on a stage, a keynote stage, and the guy's a CEO of a gas company in Salt Lake City, Utah. Yeah. This company was losing 8 giant tanks of gas a month. So imagine those giant tankers going down the highway. 8 of those from this small company are being stolen, that amount of gas a month. Now, this company is amazing. This company, the owners had cancer. So anyone in their community has cancer gets gas for free. They can pull up to any of their gas stations, get free while they're fighting cancer. It's an amazing company. So they're going to have to cut this back, this program of giving gas for free to people who have cancer because of all the gas that's being stolen from their company. So the guy sees me on stage. It's a small town. The sheriff's office has to investigate, but they're backed up. He came to me and said, Janine, can you and your team, I have a team of 9 people that work for me, can you and your team come in and investigate? I go, yeah, we don't represent law enforcement. We can come in as an internal investigation for your company. You can hire me as part of the extension of your company. I had everyone sign releases. I even videotaped it so I could get a TV show out of it.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. So I did it. And guess what? With the boom mic hanging a foot over a guy's head, we got him to confess. How do we get him to confess? That power of silence. And I think they called me Dragon Lady. I know they call me Dragon Lady. And everyone on my team changed my picture on their phone to a picture of a female dragon. And then they put like a dragon like soundtrack. So every time it rings, they know it's me, and they call me the Dragon Lady. But this was years ago. But we got him to confess, and it was silence that did it. The power of silence. I mean, other techniques as well. One of them is, if you want people to tell you the truth, you should assign them the traits you want them to have. I talk about this in a TED Talk called The Cooperation Paradigm. Think like a hostage negotiator. Hostage negotiator, Jim Kavanaugh, when he talked to David Koresh at the Branch Davidians, he didn't say, dude, you're making bad decisions. This is not smart. What is wrong with you? But this is what we say to our significant others, to our kids who play video games all day long. You're addicted to video games. What is wrong with you? You're assigning your kids the traits you don't want them to have.
Right.
But you know what hostage negotiators say? Hey, David Koresh, everyone out here says you make smart decisions. Is this true? Koresh says yes. Everyone out here says you should be respected. Is this true? Koresh says yes. Great. If I could get your words read on the Christian radio station, what would you say? And would you let the women and children go if I got your words read? Koresh said yes. And then every time his words were read, he released 2 children. Right? So what do? We do the opposite. We say bad things to the good guys, to our kids, to our employees, to our team, and we say good things to the bad guys. We need to flip that script. So check that out. It's free. It's over on YouTube, Janine Driver, Cooperation Paradigm. There's a couple more steps on how do you think like a hostage negotiator. So assigning those traits, using the power of pausing to get someone to tell you the truth is amazing.
Wow. this stuff is so interesting to me. I really enjoy just learning all the ins and outs of the human brain and how, and I hate to use the word manipulation because I don't think it is. I think it's more of reading and understanding, which most people probably go through life and they never think of anything that happens in a day, whether it's just going to get a cup of coffee, driving in a car, or talking to their boss or loved one. But there's so many languages that are going on that, as you said, I think you said 4,000 earlier, words, or 5,000 that people don't even understand, that have alternate meanings. How does somebody learn these more in depth? Like if I said, I want to do a deep dive into this, how would I learn something like that?
So one of the things that, first of all, there's books on it. So Joe Navarro is one of my favorites. Joe Navarro, retired FBI agent. I don't know if you've had him on your show. He talks a lot about the brain. So I did stand-up comedy in my 20s. So I call it education with motivation and comedy. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. If you want it delivered, I'm a storyteller. I teach through clearly. I think we're out of time 30 minutes ago. I believe people remember the stories. I could have sat here very easily and given you 50 techniques or 50 body language moves. Buy my book if you want that. Buy a body language book. You're not going to remember it. It's not going to stick. In order for something to stick, you have to wrap a story around it. And I know that's one of the reasons you have a podcast. People come in and tell stories and you can remember it. You're not just taking a bunch of notes on body language moves. I've given several, of course. That's number one. Number two, I offer an online course, 7 Levels of Reading and Influencing Human Behavior. That's live with me on Monday nights. People can check that out over at my website, which is my name, JanineDriver.com. I do online training as well, that at your own pace. And those videos are 30 seconds to 3 minutes. Our buddy, Tony Capullo, is my sales guy that sold it to me over at Lightspeed with Brad Lee. Check out Brad Lee if you haven't had him on yet.
Yeah, Brad's good.
I love Brad. I love him. Yeah, I have some interesting stories about Brad. I love him. I just love him. Not only because he's fun to look at, but he's really, really smart. I follow him on TikTok. And I just started a TikTok page in I think 4 days ago. I started posting videos. I've been followed by over 1,000 people in 4 days. That's free. So check that out. It's Body Language Institute over at TikTok. And I put on a piece of my TED Talk this morning about understanding the brain. When we use negative words and negative tones, Dr. Andrew Newberg, who's a brain scientist, negative tones, negative words, which is what we do with our kids or someone on our team when we're angry. Listen, we can't do that, blah, blah, blah. Or our tone is like, listen, knock it off. I need you to do this. Negative tone and negative words. A lot of people talk negatively. I'm a positive talker. I know that you are. I believe in manifesting. So your subconscious has no sense of humor. So if you say, yeah, I'm gonna lose everything during COVID, your brain is now saying, okay, let me figure out how I can make that happen for you. Yep. When I say something negative, I say cancel, cancel. I have a life of abundance. I'm a money magnet. Money is attracted to me, and so are good men. And so it is done now. Pay attention to your words that you're using, because your words are influencing the results that you get. So as we put it all together on my TikTok page, what I've done is I've taught people something like this: negative tones, negative words. What you'll find out is people stop listening, because it's like the incident commander at the scene of the crime. They're looking for danger, and it fires the amygdala, and an explosion happens. It's like, we have a danger here. We have danger. Alert, alert, danger, danger, alert. And you go into that fight or flight when someone's using negative words or negative tone, and you wonder why your kids aren't listening to you. Right. And you're blaming them. It's not their fault. If you've used a negative tone and a negative word, you have fired the amygdala in that person's head that you're yelling at or talking negatively to. You fired off the amygdala, and now they're in fight or flight. They are not hearing you. And in law enforcement, we call this a gray out. But when you use positive words and positive tone, the brain relaxes and sets into, how can I help? So pay attention. And by the way, I'm a recovering hothead. If you scream and yell or use negative tones, just do a reset. Say, you know what? I'm going to do a reset here. I'm going to do a reset. What I need you to do is this, and just flip that script. I do resets all the time with my kids, with myself. My motto is, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? If you want to be right, keep yelling and being negative. Right. Dr. Phil would say, Stephen, how's that working out for you, Mr. Rozenberg? If you want to be effective, take a pause. I'm not a big Tony Robbins kind of girl, but he'll call it a state change. If you take a pause, there's a great guy out there. Look into him if you want to understand the brain more. His name is Dr. Dan Siegel. He's got a ton of free stuff on YouTube. He talks about name it to tame it. And he talks about the upstairs brain versus the downstairs brain. He puts his thumb in the middle of a fist. And he says the upstairs brain is here, the outside of the fist. The downstairs brain is the thumb underneath the fist. And he talks about what happens, like, for instance, when you do something new, anything new, it comes to the upstairs brain and immediately goes downstairs. Right underneath that part of the brain where it enters, underneath it is fear. So anytime we're doing something new, you'll experience a burst of fear. That's normal. And he tells you what to do about it. And one of the things doctor would tell you, the doctor, is name it to tame it. I'm a hothead. So if I'm angry at something, which I am, because I just bought a Toyota Camry, and my live-in au pair from Argentina, who's next door here, got in a car accident while I was gone speaking at an event in Sacramento for real estate agents, got in a car accident. She backed up, trying to miss a tree, backed up and hit a car. How do you miss a car behind you? Hit a car, smashed the whole back end of my car, okay? I come in hot. I'm coming in hot. The car's 4 months old. Hot. I let her use it. It's her car to use while she's with me. I have a new au pair coming in 2 months. Now I got to go get this fixed. My insurance is going to go up, not just the $500 deductible, but I looked into it, $686 a year for God knows how long it's going to go up. If there's a second accident in 3 years, it doubles it. So I'm coming in hot. So here's my training I'm going to teach all of you. I'm sure you're about to wrap up, is this. If you are a recovering rageaholic like I am, first of all, knock it off, because you're increasing your risk of cancer by 86% if you have a trigger temper. When you are angry or anxious, this formula is going to work. If you're the person that says, but if this happens, what about if this happens? And you run scenario A, B, C, D, E. You're super anxious. You pop everyone's bubbles. You're gloom and doomy. First of all, your superpower is that you're a trend spotter. You lean into the future and see what's coming. You also set goals, measure progress, and update plans. But that comes with your negativity and your multiple what ifs and popping people's dream balloons. So there's a strength. Every strength has a corresponding weakness. So whether you are a hothead and want to knock it off, or you have anxiety about things, here's your technique. Name it to tame it. You just simply, what I do is I say, how angry am I about this car? 0 to 10. She didn't get hurt. My kids weren't in the car. I'm about a 4. 7 below, let it go. 8, 9, 10, be angry or anxious then. 7 below, let it go. 8, 9, 10, be angry then. When you just take a pause to name it, it takes 3 seconds. I stop and I go, what number is this? 4. As soon as you take that pause, your blood goes back up to the neocortex part of the brain, upstairs brain, and now you're thinking rationally again. So it is that pattern interrupt that Tony Robbins would say. So right. Name it to tame it. 7 below, let it go. 8, 9, 10, be pissed off or anxious then. I had a friend, I was mad at another situation and I was complaining. I'm like, can you believe it? Blah, 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 blah. And my friends know my techniques. Her name's Aida. She goes, what's your number? Can I swear on this show or no? Can I swear or no?
Yeah.
Oh, she goes, what's your number? I looked at her. I go, you bitch. You bitch using my techniques against me.
Yeah.
I go, it's
How
a
dare
3.
you?
How dare you? I go, it's a 3. She goes, great. What else can we talk about? And I was like, I can't complain anymore. I'm
Yeah.
like, damn you, Aida.
That's a good rule. That's a really good rule. Well, I've got 2 more questions, and I love the fact that you've taken so much of your time. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
And we're gonna have to have another show because we've got the whole 9/11 story and everything, and both of our histories. So we'll have to do a part 2. But I've got 2 questions for you. So my first question is kind of a legacy question. You talked earlier about, well, I don't know the words you said, but we were talking about being selfish and being able to kind of pass things down. And I'm sure you saw my show or my shows earlier where, my son, he bought his first rental property at 14 years old. And I'm a big believer in creating that generational wealth or legacy, because I believe as entrepreneurs, we're very selfish people in general. We go to these seminars, we read these books, we watch these podcast shows, but we never share it with the people that we actually love. We do it for them, but we don't actually tell them or share what they're doing with them. And so, and I wish I could say that I created this idea for my son to buy his rental property. He came to me and said, Dad, I want to own rental properties because I see what it's done for you and Mom, and I want to have that life. So my question to you is what, after everything you've done, all the education, all the accolades, all the awards, what do you most want to be known for, would you say?
Oh, what a great question. What do I most want to be known for? Believing in comebacks. Whether it's my kids or companies or myself, I'd like to be known as someone who, it makes me emotional, that believes in the power of a comeback. I think that when I was a kid and I had these bad things happen, it could have broke me. And I think for so many people, it does break them. I happen to have an amazing mother who just poured seeds of greatness inside of me that grow all the time. And I say this to my kids, you have seeds of greatness inside of you and they grow every day. And Jack, my 7-year-old, goes, and blood, Mom, bones and blood I have in me too. I go, you're right, Jackie. But believing in second chances, believing in that everyone deserves a comeback. And I do think that we can learn, emotional intelligence grows with age. I know it's certainly true for me. For me right now, Charlie, he's my 8-year-old. I call him the governor of Virginia. First, I used to call him an attorney, and then I called him a judge, and now I call him the governor of the great Commonwealth of Virginia.
Escalating, huh?
I'm like, I need to dream bigger for this kid. And he goes, Mom, I think you need to call me president. And so, but he'll ask me a question. If you and I are whispering, he'll come in and go, and what was that podcast about? And I go, listen, Governor. So Charlie said to me a couple of weeks ago, Mom, I have 2 books. You say more than you think, and you can't lie to me. And he goes, Mom, he's 8. He's cute as a button. Mom, I tried reading one of your body language books downstairs, and it was just kind of too hard for me to understand. I'm wondering if you can write kids' books so I can learn about body language in a way that I can understand. And I said, yeah, I think that's a great idea. So I wrote down on my phone age groups. There's different groups for books, ages 6 to 10. I wrote down the name of my first book. And Charlie gave me the name, has his name in it. And Confident Charlie's in there. Confident Charlie heads to the zoo. And I write down book 1 of 52 for age group 6 to 10, 1 of 52. So I've just begun. And then I want to do another age group. I also want to write books for single parents. Well, so now I'm starting to write this book. So it has to be 1,000 words for this age group. And then I just hired a person to do the pictures and the cover. And I think it's so great that Charlie wants to learn it. Right. To your story about your son, it's not to the effect of owning property yet. You're inspiring me. I always leave being a better person anytime I meet anybody. It's like a raindrop falling down the window. Every time a raindrop hits another raindrop, both drops are changed forever. There's a famous poem about that. So Charlie, guess what he did the next day? It was his idea, not mine. He opened up something in his computer, his school computer, and started writing a book, a children's book. And he put a picture on the cover. It's about birds. And it's like The Great Charlie and Birds or something. And so what I'm going to do, because you can self-publish now on Amazon,
right,
and they'll print it on demand, and they take a piece and you get a piece. I'm going to do a series for both me and a series for Charlie. And these books, these body language books, I'm going to have Charlie write with me, and I can take each of my 3 kids and they'll be co-written by Janine and Charlie, by Janine and Jack, by Janine and Angus. So they, at the ages of 7, 8, and 16, get to be published authors.
Nice. Very cool.
So
Very-
yeah, I don't know how much money there is to make there, but it's just changing the way they think about themselves. You know, I want to tell you this briefly. Rich people versus poor people talk to doctors differently. So when you take your kid in, a poor person, I'm a blue collar kid from Boston. Okay. My dad's an auto mechanic, retired, used to fix fire trucks. My mom was a nurse for elderly homeless people, passed away of breast cancer 8 years ago. When a blue collar family brings their kid in to the doctor says, what's going on with Johnny? The parent speaks for Johnny. Well, Johnny had a sore throat for 3 days and his right ear has been hurting. Okay. And Johnny's 6. When rich people take their kids to the doctor, do you know what they do?
Tell them what's wrong with you.
Yeah. What's wrong with Johnny? Well, Johnny's right here. Johnny, tell him what's wrong. And you begin to train your kids that being a doctor is a job where the doctor is here to serve you. Where blue collar families, poorer families will teach the kids what? To revere someone who's a doctor. You may never be someone
class, so you respect him as
they're a higher class person. They're a higher class person. Now, my mother did not do this to us because my mother was a nurse for elderly homeless people. And my mother, when doctors would say about the elderly homeless, they'd look at my mother and say, listen, Stephen here needs to have this surgery done, this. My mother would say, Stephen's right here, doctor. Why don't you talk to him? And the doctors would often say to my mother, well, he's not going to understand me. And my mother would reply to the doctors, isn't it our job, doctor, with all due respect, to talk to Stephen here in a way that he does understand? My mother was always teaching us that we, at the end of the day, we all believe the same. I remember she worked in the GI unit for a little bit at Mount Auburn Hospital in Cambridge, and a nurse came in and said, the head of cardiology is coming in today. My mother goes, why are you whispering and tell me that? She goes, well, I just wanted to let you know it's the head of cardiology. And my mother said, I treat everybody like they're the head of cardiology. You never have to whisper that to me. I treat everybody with respect. So I'd like to be known as spreading my mother's legacy, that we believe in comebacks, treating people with kindness and respect, and that I believe we all have a seed of greatness inside of us, even people in jail. You know, what's the story behind the story? I'm fascinated about it. The story behind the story. I think it can show a little kindness and empathy for someone. Susan Smith killed her 2 kids because she was dating a guy who didn't want to date a woman with kids anymore. She drowned them in a car, in their car seats. She's evil, right? We hate her. Do you know she was molested at the age of 3 by her dad her whole entire life? And when she was a teenager, would go back and have sex with her father? It doesn't excuse the monstrous thing that Susan Smith did, but she was broken as a kid. So I'm fascinated about comebacks and the story behind the story. So for me, I would like that. Kindness, comebacks, second chances. What's the story behind the story? That would be my legacy.
Very, very inspiring, Janine. One last question. If you could pick anybody, alive or dead or imaginary, to have a beer with and shoot the shit, who would that person be?
Jesus.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I have a million questions for this dude. I have a million questions for him. You know, I think I'm a swearing Christian. Uh-huh. And it's so interesting because I call myself a Christian, right? I'm a modern Christian. You know, I dabbled with, you know, I dated a couple girls in my 20s, you know. So I think that, you know, there's a lot of people out there that Christians get a bad rap. They're like, oh, gay people, they're going to hell. They're doing this. They're going. Okay, where that is in the Bible, the next line in the Bible talks about not wearing blended material. So you're not supposed to mix cotton with polyester, or it's a sin. And you can't have your mixed crops growing at the same place. So I think that a lot of people
misinterpreted.
Well, or they take a piece and they take it out of context, and sure. I don't think it's up to anybody to judge. Like, I don't know. So I leak disgust with my nose wrinkled there. So here I've been saying for years, I'm a swearing Christian. And just recently, like over COVID, I started actually doing a thing called reading the Bible. I was raised a Catholic, but I'm a non-denominational Christian. Catholics don't read a Bible. So, you know, the priest tells you about it. But I have this Bible and I started reading it, and I do mind maps. I don't know if you can see this. I mind map. I take a middle node and I do mind maps on you, on everybody. And I started mind mapping the Bible, and I find it fascinating. Even if you don't believe Jesus is the Son of God and he's just some interesting dude that was there, the Bible is the number one most duplicated book in the world. The second most duplicated writing. Do you know what it is after the Bible?
I've heard it, I've read it, but I don't know what it is.
The Message to Garcia. So I'll tell you briefly what that is. I know we're out of time, but so I would really like to meet Jesus. I have a million questions about him. Why I get my belief. There's a great guy. I don't know if you've had him on, Dr. Conte. Have you had him on?
No, but I'd love to have him. Yeah, I'd love. I know of him, but I'd love to have him. If you can,
Dr. Christian,
that'd be great.
I'll introduce you to him. Dr. Christian Conde is a friend of mine. I love him. So he'll talk about, when someone comes, they give you a box. We evaluate the outside of the box that you can see, but what's on the other side of the box? What I say, the story behind the story. And if people took a second when I say I'm a Christian, instead of judging me and said, what makes you a Christian? I would tell you. So for me, what makes me a Christian is when my son Angus was a little kid, a couple things. I also believe in reincarnation, which I don't think most Christians believe in. But when Angus was 3, I was laying next to him in his bed, and he said to me, "You're my second favorite mom ever." And I go, "Have you had more than one mom?" And he said, he's like 3, 4. He goes, "I've had many moms." And I go, "Really? Who was your favorite?" He goes, "My mom that died in a car fire with me and my 2 brothers." First of all, how does he even know the term car fire? And he had 2 brothers. And now here I have 2 more kids. He has 2 brothers here, and he's the oldest.
That gave me the chills. I have to say, that just gave me the chills hearing you say that.
And so then not only that, one time Angus was 6, and he said, "Would you like to know how I got in your belly?" And I said, and by the way, I was not going to church. I was like anti-Catholicism, for many reasons. And I didn't go to church until just a couple of years ago. And Angus said to me, "Do you want to know how I got in your belly?" And I go, "Yeah, I'd love to know." We're at breakfast up in the, we have like a picnic table bench on one side and 2 chairs on the other one, the bench side. And he goes, "So do you want to know how I got in your belly?" I go, "Sure." He goes, "Well, there was a war in heaven. There is a war in heaven. And I was a good angel on God's side. And I got stabbed by a bad angel right here in my rib cage. A bad angel stabbed me. And God gave me a choice to be a wounded angel or come back to earth again. And I chose to come back to earth again. And as soon as I did that,
wow,
I was in your belly." Not what I was expecting when he said.
That's a pretty insightful, descriptive, story that somebody like that would know. I mean, like you said, how would he even know all these words and phrases and what they all mean?
Yeah, and we're not going to church. Never. He had never stepped foot in a church other than being baptized because my parents made me baptize him because it was, Catholic thing. So where did he get that from? Well, I go and interview someone to be an executive assistant for me. And I said, "Listen, I can't reach my mother. I can't reach my 2 younger sisters. And this crazy thing just happened with my son. I don't think in an interview I can ask if you're religious, but can I tell you the story?" She goes, "No, I'm religious. I'm a Christian." I tell her the story. She goes, "By any chance, does your son have a birthmark there?" I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "People who tell these kind of stories often have birthmarks on their body where they say these." Angus, lo and behold, has 1.5 inch birthmark, but I don't know if it's on the right side of his body or his left. He said he got stabbed in the left and made this gesture as if he was getting stabbed. I couldn't end this interview, Stephen, fast enough. I went home, and when I got there, I'm like, "Angus is going to sound weird, buddy. He's 6. I lifted up his shirt, and lo and behold, right where he said he got stabbed, he has this jagged mark right there on his rib cage. So I believe in reincarnation. I believe in God, because from the words of my little teeny baby, if you meet my son Angus, he's slightly on the spectrum. He has some autism. People say all the time, he's like an 86-year-old man in a 16-year-old kid's body. He's an old soul. Everyone says it. They meet him. They'll see a picture of him online, and strangers will say, "Your son's an old soul." This is why I believe that Jesus is the Son of God. I believe in reincarnation. I believe all this stuff because I saw it. Last story about Angus, he's 8. At 8, he goes, "You know how I no longer talk about God and Jesus anymore?" I go, "Yeah, I'm noticing that, Angus. I never talked about him." He goes, "Want to know why?" I go, "Yeah, 8. He goes, "Because Jesus gives us the right to choose to be good people or bad people, Mom." And I go, "Okay." And he goes, "And God doesn't want us, if as I get older, if I choose to be a bad person, God doesn't want us going back and destroying his kingdom. because we know the secrets. So as we get older, we forget playing with Jesus and we forget being with God and protecting him, because he doesn't want us, when we die, if we choose to be bad, to destroy his kingdom. Where is he getting this? My dad is an auto mechanic. My mom is a nurse. They're in Boston. I'm in Virginia. My husband's family, my ex-husband's family is not religious. He has no Christian related friends. Like, where is this coming from? So this has shaped my belief. So I'd love to meet Jesus. I believe that he's real. I believe he's the Son of God. And that would be the person I would choose to meet.
Wow, that is probably the top I've ever heard from asking that question. So you have definitely won that category. Because that is because it's not just you want to know, was it real or did he write the Bible? I mean, you have some actual factual thoughts behind this, and some, children, living, breathing, I don't want to say specimens, but your kids are actually living products of how they think because of that. So that would be an interesting.
I believe.
I agree.
Unrelentingly, I believe. Yeah, I believe.
Wow, that's good. Well, Janine, I have to say, this was amazing talking to you. I am so excited that we got to talk and get to know each other. And again, thanks, Tony, and for introducing us, because without him, we wouldn't have been able to connect. And obviously people can connect with you. It sounds like you're on the circuit speaking as I am. So I'm sure we'll probably.
Good. I'll recommend you. We'll have to recommend each other to different events.
Absolutely. I've got a ton of people I'd love to introduce you to as well, because I think you could help a lot of people. And I think your information is so amazingly insightful. I think it's great that you're out there doing this and you're making such a huge impact. And like I said, we've got to do another show, because the whole 9/11 story and everything with Mike back in my career, I think we find some very common threads between us.
I just have to say two quick things. Number one, yes, please have me back for part two. I recently, not too long ago, saw some real estate agents, and they were walking with for sale signs, for sale signs, and at a restaurant. And I go, did you just sell a couple houses? There were 4 of them. Did you just sell a couple houses? They go, no, we're doing a special contest. I go, what do you mean? Everywhere they go, they're carrying signs that say for sale. The parent-student meeting in the elementary school, the Outback Steakhouse, the grocery store, and everywhere they go, they have to take these signs. And I said, how is it working? They go, great. People who are thinking of selling are coming up asking us questions. Instead of walking around giving business cards, it's a gigantic business card. Your body language is the same thing. It is a walking business card. You're walking around carrying it, and it's getting attention. Out of everything you put on every single day, the thing that visually is judged the most is your body language. More than your title, more than your tie, your shoes, your coat, it is your body language. That's number one. No, and by the way, everyone should be doing this with these for sale signs. I thought it was awesome, especially in a market right now where you don't have enough property, you don't have enough inventory.
I mean, isn't that a pattern interrupt is what you're doing from a broader spectrum?
Yes, 100%. Oh, look at you. You're so smart. I love it. Yes. And here's the last thing. We didn't get to talk about so many things, but we teased it, right? This is called an open loop. Are you familiar with open loops?
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
All right. So I want to end with, for people who aren't familiar with open loops, an open loop keeps people thinking of you. If Steven Rozenberg and I here said we're going to talk about 3 things, we talked about the 3 things, he thanked me, and you loved it. You thought that was so interesting, you would stop thinking about myself and Steven pretty quickly after that interview. When we talk about this 9/11 thing and how it changed his life and how COVID changed mine, and we've talked about it numerous times, not intentionally to tease you, but just organically happens in any conversation, that's an open loop, which means you're going to continue to think of this interview. You're going to continue to wonder if there's going to be a part 2. You're going to ask Steven, when is part 2? In part 2, will you ask her this? You'll send questions in, and you'll keep this as an open loop. Our brain is programmed to have an open loop. This is why when babies cry, you can stop them from crying when you interact with them, when you hold them. Our brain is trained to have open loops where other feedback can help close it. So open loops. If you yourself in sales are not leaving open loops and you're spending a little extra time to close the loop, stop spending the extra time. Say, listen, let's talk about this next time we get together, and you'll stay top of mind for people. Google open loops.
That is so true. And what a great way to end it, because I love the fact that we're going to come back and do another one, and it'll be a totally different conversation, because for me, I'll open up more about my life and my past and my background, which you know a little bit about. And I'd be curious to get your perspective of how I handled things and what I did with the pivot with my life and where I took it from there. So I'm kind of curious that you can analyze me a little and tell me, yeah, Steve, you really fucked this up, or you know what, you actually did the right thing and you went the right path. So I'll be curious.
I love that. It's kind of like the yin and the yang. So this time you're getting my background story and about me. And next time, let's get your background story. I'll give you some impact and input, and I'll put some words to what you did, because you have done successful strategy. So I'll wrap my brain around what it is and share with people at home. What can you do if you're pivoting right now? And remember, I believe in comebacks. You deserve a comeback. Everyone deserves a comeback. Use positive thinking. If you don't believe in manifesting, think about it. If a car is at the top of a hill in San Francisco and it starts to slant downwards, right? Just a little bit. Can you stop the car standing in front of it? Yes. If it's just a little bit tilted, you can stop the car by standing in front of it. But as that car tilts further and further down the hill, it's going to be next to impossible. You're going to get run over by it. This is the power of positive thinking versus negative thinking. One negative thought, you can stop it. If you have one negative thought and you don't stop it in the next 17 seconds, and another negative thought climbs on board, and another, you now have momentum, and you're now going to be manifesting failure. So you have a 17-second time clock to complain about something and then flip the script. And then you want to start thinking positive things. 6 rounds of 17 seconds, positive things. Set your alarm for a minute and a half, and you will begin to change the direction of your life. Check it out.
You know, and when we do the other show, we'll drop a little teaser. I had learned about, I was trained by a gentleman named Marshall Silver on NLP and some other things, and how to speak and present and how to think. He helped us instrumentally in growing our business. But he also taught me about I am statements. And since that day, 7 years, every single day, I write them out. Every day I get up, and that's my ritual, my habit. So I'd like to kind of deconstruct my life for you, if it's okay. And then you can kind of tell me, hey, you're doing it in the wrong order, or I just want to get someone's perspective, because there's really no rule book. I've put it together how I've thought and books that I've read, but I'd love to hear from your perspective.
Oh yeah.
I can make it better, or things that I'm doing that you're saying you're kind of contradicting yourself. So I'd love to do that. That'd be great.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait to get on the books. Let's get it on the books today, because in order for you to be my people, I have to see my top five I ams in you, and you have to see your top 5 I ams in me. I am power. I am truth. I am open. I am generosity, and I am a healer. I use my humor to heal. If I don't see my top 5 in you, then you're not my people. And if you don't see your top 5 in me, it doesn't have to be the exact 5, but you have to see your top 5 in me. Then if you don't see them, then I won't be your people. So I can't wait to talk about what your I ams are. In the meantime, if you haven't thought about your top 5, think about it. Your top 5 are the things that you were when you were a tiny kid, when you were in elementary school, the things that I believe God made you to be, Steven Rozenberg. Figure out those five things. I am truth. I am open. I am power. I am generosity. And I am a healer. That's who I was at 7 years old. And that's who I am today. So I can't wait to talk about our IAMs. This is so fun. You're my new friend. Yay.
I love it.
Thanks everyone for listening in. We know this was a long one, and time is valuable to all of us. And we can't thank you enough. Hopefully you got something from it. And I hope that you've been inspired to look at your world in a different way. Thank you, Steven, and your team for bringing me on. I can't wait to play with you again.
Janine, thank you so much. And to everyone for watching. And I hope you guys got something out of it, guys and girls. Hopefully everyone got something to take away that can learn in the future. Again, there's going to be more podcasts with Janine as well. And maybe we'll be on stage somewhere in the future together doing some other stuff. So please make sure you follow Janine on social media. All of her bio and all of her information will be in the notes of the show. Again, for Steve Rozenberg, myself, and Miss Janine Driver, thanks for watching and listening. High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg, and we'll catch everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.